Hey everyone, this is Jeremy with Teletone, and I have some exciting news. Today we are officially releasing our second standalone effects plugin. It is a Spring Reverb plugin, and it is called Silver Spring. After we released Tone Architect, which was an extremely powerful tone shaping plugin, we wanted to try something in a completely different category. And thankfully that also was aligning with something that you all were asking for, which was a Spring Reverb plugin. And we heard this over and over again on social media. So we were thrilled that those two things aligned so well. And our goal with this plugin was to make something that had simplicity, but also a lot of soul to it. And so we set out to make the thing that we really wanted to use in our own music making. But before we get into looking at the controls and looking at the interface, I think you probably just want to hear what it sounds like first. Now, when you think of a Spring Reverb, you're probably initially thinking about guitar, but we have found so many more uses for this plugin than just guitar. On this trailer track that I'm going to show you, I am using it on everything, but in slightly different ways, which we will get into later. But let's just go ahead and listen to this track. We will jump into some of this a little bit more in depth later, but let me just show you a couple things. When I scroll through my mixer here, you can see that the only plugins that I'm using are Tone Architect and Silver Spring. I have this instance used on the drums. There's some on the bass. So I don't believe that there's anything in here that's not using the Silver Spring plugin. And I think that now might be a good time to mention that we worked very hard to create this with an extremely light CPU footprint. Reverbs can be very CPU intensive, and sometimes you have to use them as a send only. Maybe you only want to load up one or two instances and then send your tracks to it, to the reverb, because you don't want to bog down your computer. But we have created this with a very light footprint. I know that in testing I've had at least 20 instances load up, and my computer, I almost guarantee you, is older than your computer. I really don't like change. So like I said, simplicity is part of the goal here. This is pretty straightforward. We'll just start at the top left corner here. Here's your bypass button, the modulation button, the modulation button is going to create subtle variations in the tail of the reverb just to make it sound a little more lively. Here is the preset browser, and this is going to contain all the factory presets, and you will be able to also make your own presets with this. Arrows where you can scroll through the presets. You can save or delete presets using these. Here's where you can redeem your serial key. If you do the free trial, we do have a free trial for this, just like Tone Architect, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that in the intro. But you can redeem your serial number with this little key icon here. There is a mix knob. Here's a decay. This is going to affect the tail. One little nerdy detail about the decay knob is that this is an artifact-free decay knob. You may not care about that, but on most algorithmic reverbs and IR reverbs, as you turn the decay, you're going to get little glitchy artifacts, and we have worked around that. So this is artifact-free. Here is a pre-delay knob, and as you move this, you're going to see the number in milliseconds move up and down. It may not be the first thing that comes to mind, but really mess with this pre-delay. It can make a big difference. I found myself defaulting to using it around 12 o'clock, even by default. There's a drive knob, and this is going to utilize odd harmonics to create like a tube saturation sound. There's a high and a low pass filter. And then there's this enhance switch, which is going to clean up a little bit of the low mids and make it a little bit brighter, as well as increasing the stereo width of the sound. Below, there are input and output knobs. As I explained in all of our Tone Architect videos, this input meter reading is going to show you what is coming into the plugin. Adjusting the input knob will have no impact whatsoever on the meter, because this is your gauge to make sure that what is coming in is a nice, strong, healthy signal. Make sure you're not clipping. Reducing the input is not going to help you. But increasing the input is going to have an effect on everything else, including the drive. And then we also have your output knob and output meter here. I was saving this reverb selection menu for last because we're going to spend some time in there. We sampled 17 different Spring Reverb hardware units to make this plugin. And honestly, most of these model numbers are not going to mean a lot to you. Some of them might. You might recognize a few names, but because you may not know what you're looking at here, we've put them into categories based on the sound. And so you can see there's Ripple, Silver, Splash, Springy, and Torrent. And I think we should just go ahead and go through these one at a time. So the first section here is Ripple, and these have a little bit of a ripple type effect to them. Some of these are a little bit, you would almost call it closer to a slapback delay than a washy reverb sound, which is actually pretty useful because for instruments that have a lot of low end information, like let's say, you know, like a whole drum kit or your bass, you may not want a super washy sound, but you want to create some kind of life to it, some kind of vibe. And so this section is kind of nice for that. So I have these drums soloed from the trailer track, and it looks like I'm using this EP250 unit. I've reduced the decay a little bit. I've turned up this pre-delay, and then I've used this high pass to cut out a little bit of the frequencies where the kick is going to live. So you can see I'm trying to bypass like the sub information there. And then I've also mellowed out the highs a bit. And so you can see I'm just trying to keep the decays from getting in the way of the next beat. So I've cut that down a little bit. But this is like a really nice option for being able to use it without it getting too much in the way of things. I'm going to go ahead and load up this bass now too. And on the bass, I'm using this MX6. This was a really rare find. It's actually a Spring Reverb mixer. It looks really cool. Nowadays, it's not like the most useful thing. It has, I believe, has 6 channels, but it was really cool. You can overdrive it. Had a really cool sound. So let me solo this bass real quick. The next category down is silver, and these are going to be some very classic units. You may have heard of some of these, but one of the ones that I was most excited to get my hands on was this Great British Spring. It's a really strange looking spring reverb. It comes in this big PVC pipe, and then there are 2 sets of 3 springs that are chained together, and I think that they end up being about 4 feet long. So this is one that can have a much longer tail than some of the other ones, has a very full sound, and you get a bit of that springy sound, but it also is more washy, more reverby than some of this stuff in the Ripple section. This can be great on vocals, on strings, on brass. I was using it for this trailer track. I'm using it on the strings. So let's hear a little bit of that. kind of showing off that drive a little bit too. This is a drive that is only going to affect the wet signal, which is kind of fun. And while we're here, let's go ahead and look at this vocal too, which I also use the Great British Spring on that, but we'll sub out one here in a second.
Let's take a lover's walk. Let's take a lover's walk.
So that's the RV1, which is a Furman spring reverb unit. It's kind of cool. It has a limiter and an EQ on it. We'll hear a little bit with the limiter on for that hardware unit.
Let's take a lover's walk. Let's take a lover's walk.
Yeah, and I actually, since I'm using Enhance on this one, let's go ahead and hear that too. I'm going to turn it off. Now let's just reset everything to somewhat neutral territory.
Let's take a lover's walk. Let's take a lover's walk.
It's very subtle, but it can be very powerful if you use it in the right way. Okay, the next category is splash. And this category is, I wouldn't say it's like centered at guitar, but this is close to what you would find in some of the old 60s Fender spring reverb units, or like we sampled our 68 Super Reverb. So these are going to be a little bit like shorter and splashier sounding. These work really nice on like short staccato sounds. And for this song, I was playing this very, very short, stabby guitar part. And I just ran the guitar direct in, and then I used Tone Architect and Silver Spring to kind of bring this to life. So without anything, it would be like this. Let me turn this other right channel on. I overdubbed like another part on top of it. So this first one is using 63 Dark Spring, and then the second one is also using 63 Dark Spring. And you can see that I am using the drive on that one. Am I using on this one too? I may have just used literally the same, almost the same settings. Let's get a little variation here. Let me pull up a different one. Let's pull up the Space Expander. This one was, this is a really fun unit. So the legend of the Fisher Space Expander is that it was a spring reverb unit that was made to go inside a car stereo. Picturing like the way that, you know, the shocks in cars from the 60s and 70s, I think you could anticipate why this might have been a problem. But it eventually made its way into the consumer audio, home audio market. It's a really cool unit. Let me throw it on this guitar and let you hear it. So that is the splash section. These are shorter, brighter sounding spring reverb units. Okay, second to last category is springy. And these are the most springy sounding of the group. If you are in guitar world, you may hear people use terms like drippy or boingy, which I'd like to stay away from for this video. So we'll go with springy. I'm gonna go back to the drums and load up this HR12. This is a unit made by a Japanese company called Hawk, and this might be my favorite reverb unit in the bunch. It's very cool. It's in this long rectangular chassis, and then I'm guessing, so there's two springs in it, and I'm guessing they're like 10 to 12 inches long each. It's a very full sound, very springy sounding. Let's hear a little bit of the drums. I'm just going to use this on a few different things. Those are Solfi drums, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, and in case you were wondering, those are from our drum instrument Solfi. Let's go ahead and pull up this bass track, which is retrograde bass, another one of our instruments. This is a palm muted setting, and so I want to probably shorten the decay on it. But because of that springy sound, this can be really cool on bass too, depending on like what you're doing. But we should hear this on something else also. Let me go back to the guitars and pull up this TR2. The TR2 is a spring reverb made by a Canadian company called Trainer. And the cool thing about this is that there was an actual drive knob on it as well as a tone knob. So we were able to sample this with that drive cranked up. I mean, it's not the most extreme, it's not as extreme as you're thinking it's going to be, but it is very cool. So those are a couple of reverbs from the Springy section. Okay, last, let's look at this Torrent section. And these are going to be some that have been either physically manipulated or digitally altered in some way, like time stretched. But we took a lot of liberties with this plugin, even like daisy chaining several units together in series to make really new and interesting sounds. We also reversed some. I'm going to pull up this lead vocal again, and let's hear the RV1. That's that Furman unit that we talked about earlier, and this is a reverse of that.
Let's take a lover's walk.
And then let's try this kitchen sink one. I tried a whole bunch of different stuff, combining a space echo with, I believe, the Hawk and something else. I may have reversed one of them. I thought it was just going to end up being just complete, like a garbled mess, but it ended up being actually pretty cool. So we ended up using it. And strangely enough, like it works really well on a vocal because it kind of sounds like a combination of a reverb and a delay together.
Let's take a lover's walk. Let's take a lover's walk.
But this actually works really well on other things too. Let me pull up those Solfi drums again, and let's hear this reversed one. Let's hear this kitchen sink. I mean, probably not ideal for this particular song, but you get the idea of how fun this can be to use with other sources besides the vocals. The last thing I want to cover before we go is these presets that we've made. You can find them under the factory presets. And these have already kind of been shaped for different instruments. And so if you're not sure where to start, this could be a good place. And there's really nothing secret about this. You can see that this is made for a palm muted bass, which is what I have pulled up. You can see I have this high pass dialed up to keep it from absorbing too much of that low end, and it sounds like this. So you're just getting a little bit of the vibe from it. This one is kind of more experimental. It wouldn't be for this song, but this has the mix all the way up, and I've cranked up the drive. It's one of the more experimental sounding ones. Called Phone Video. That's kind of what it sounded like to me. Play through a couple of drum presets here. Going back to these Soulfly drums, we'll just hear a couple of these. So those are a few of the drum presets. We'll just hear a couple of guitar and then we'll call it good for today. And I think we should stop there. There's more A/B examples on our website, teletoneaudio.com. Silver Spring plugin is out now. There is a free trial, so please take advantage of that. Teletone Audio is the website, at Teletone Audio on social media. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure and tag us and show us what you are doing with these plugins. Thanks.